Hi guys, my name's Jacob. I'm a rank 1 healer main. I'm going to make a quick Resto Druid guide to help some of you out, as it's what I think I'm going to be playing the most in Shadowlands, possibly. It's what I've been playing the most since the Shadowlands pre-patch hit. Not really a big Mistweaver fan anymore, as it was my main. I'm a bit over 3200 experience in 3v3 arena with Mistweaver, and I've queued at rank 1 rating many times on many other classes. With Resto Druid probably being the second most under Mistweaver. So I'm gonna make this guide real quick, starting with race. I think that Night Elf is definitely the best race for Resto Druid by far, as it allows you to get re-stealths, and you could possibly drink with these re-stealths. You can get behind a pillar like so, well, even while you're in combat, re-stealth, start drinking, and that's a pretty big advantage to have. But mostly I think Feral Affinity is really strong. So this re-stealth allows you to get your Feral Affinity rake stun off on people. You can, once you're in stealth with Feral Affinity, if you open on someone with rake stun, they get stunned for a few seconds. This can allow you, even in combat, to get clones, to get just stuns on targets for pressure. If someone's killing you, like a melee, you can re-stealth stun them into a clone. If it just gives you another option to escape. These are really big advantages to have as a Resto Druid with the Night Elf racial, as opposed to the other options on Alliance for sure. On Horde, Tauren is probably the best. That allows you to war stomp, clone people. Troll is probably right behind that. It gives you a little haste buff. Although I really highly recommend Night Elf if given the opportunity. Tauren being second choice on Horde. Outside of race, we can start talking about the talents real quick. I think that almost every game you're probably going to use Sin Ward, as it gives you an extra heal to help top people whenever they're getting lower. And there's a lot of pressure on you, and it just really helps you with that throughput healing. It also affects your mastery as a Resto Druid, which the more hots you have on your target that you're healing actually increases the total healing you're doing. So for each hot that you have, your healing from all your heals is increased by 13.2% extra for each heal. So this Sin Ward actually buffs all your healing by 13.2% on top of the healing that you're already doing. Nourish, I find that it's probably mostly only useful when healing warlocks or shadow priests, or maybe like casters that normally just stand still and have to tank damage. These people probably could just stand out here in the open like a warlock, and you just drop a ring on them, and you would combo Nourish most likely with having Spring Blossoms as well, because as the healer, say your warlock is right here, this mushroom, you're standing max range, and you would just be casting Nourish over and over again on your target over here, out of like where no one can CC you hopefully, and you're just doing max healing per second, because the Spring Blossoms also increasing your mastery per hot, as it puts an extra hot on the person. So the Nourish helps you with your throughput healing. It also gives you more mastery, as it says right here, it triples the bonus for mastery. Yeah. Anyway, so the only time I would ever use Nourish is probably when healing like a Warlock or a Shadow Priest who just can stand still and do damage in your ring, your Spring Blossoms. I probably would never use this without Spring Blossoms, because you need that mastery buff and you need the constant healing from standing in the circle. But it's not good for healing anything that's very mobile. Abundance, I don't really find much use for Abundance. I probably never spec'd into this ever. I don't think that it's very good. I wouldn't really think about it too much personally. If you find another use for it, please let me know if there's any talent combos that make it strong. Sin Ward almost every time for the most part. Just an extra little heal to put on. 30-second cooldown, not too bad. Can't be purged, which is huge. as a Resto Druid, and yeah, anyway, moving on. So, I think that Wild Charge is pretty much always the choice. It allows you to get in and out of situations pretty easily. You can travel form leap out of line of something. You can feral leap to another enemy target to get your maybe re-stealth rake stun on somebody. You can leap to a teammate if there's a teammate on the pillar and I'm getting trained by melee out here. Say I'm in bear farm just getting pumped by melee. I'll come out of form when the stun's over, and then I can jump to my teammate with Wild Charge behind this pillar, which helps a lot. I think this helps a lot too with Z-axis maps such as Dalaran Sewers or Blade's Edge Arena. So if someone's up on the bridge, you can jump up to them constantly over and over again. And it's a very short cooldown. It's 15 seconds long. It does the same in bear form as it does in cat form. You leap to your enemy. You can, if you are Guardian Affinity, you can in-cap roar them instead of rake stunning them. Overall, I think this just helps the most. Renewal, some might think helps to survive, but in the long run, getting out of line of sight of your enemy with Wild Charge will mitigate more damage almost way more often than not compared to Renewal, being stuck where you are and just healing. You really just need to get that gap like away from the melee or out of line of the casters, or this will help you initiate goes with your rake stun and your in-cap roar. I think Wild Charge is by far the best. Tiger Dash doesn't, it's a 45-second cooldown. It's slower than moving with Wild Charge and bursts, because the Wild Charge will get you to where you want to go almost instantly with the leap. Whereas Tiger Dash, you could get CC'd or something along the way while running. It is very fast, but it doesn't get you that instant gap that you want, and it's a way bigger cooldown. Alright, I think we can move on from those talents. I would just take Wild Charge almost 99.9% of the time. Same with Sin Ward so far. Alright, so Balance Affinity. It could be useful versus mages probably more than anything else, but I think the damage output from it is lower than Feral Affinity overall, and it doesn't give you these stun locks that you're looking for. The reason I say versus mages is because it allows you to stand far away and do damage while Moonkin form is up, because they can't sheep you and you can still get some damage on them. And you can still kind of use like some of your heals and your Dispel while you're in Balance Affinity Boomkin form without getting sheeped. So that's kind of an advantage, but I would pretty much always go for the Feral Affinity if you're not worried about dying, in which case you would probably take Guardian Affinity. But just to challenge yourself, I think that like Feral Affinity might have the higher skill cap, but I do think it is better in a lot of ways to help your team land kills and to get more CC and more damage. So in 2v2, this is much easier to use in longer stretches of time, because you're not worried about that extra DPS killing you if it's healer DPS versus healer DPS in 2v2 arena. I'd probably take the Feral Affinity most times, almost all the time. Right now, with how bursty the game is, Guardian can be useful also, because it gives you that frenzied regen to try to live, gives you that extra heal, it gives you some damage mitigation, the extra 6% damage mitigation from all sources. You still have an in-cap roar. You can in-cap roar into Cyclone, although it does break on damage and it DRs with things such as Polymorph or Freezing Trap or things in that school. So you gotta beware of that. Maybe I would use Guardian versus a team that I know is gonna train me, like maybe a Windwalker or a Feral Druid or something that I just can't get off of me, or a Demon Hunter or something like along those lines. But I find Feral Affinity to be useful more times than not. I would pick it over Guardian Affinity, unless I'm just playing a team that I just keep dying to, and I just think that I have to have more defense overall. So yeah, I think that that's probably the move most of the time is Feral Affinity. And if you need help getting good with it and seeing how to use it, just watch my stream. There's VODs that are free to watch. I have YouTube videos. Just I'm using Feral Affinity game after game after game, and it helps me get kills and do a lot of things, and it makes the class way more fun. So I would personally use this most of the time. Moving on to the next, I think that Mighty Bash is probably the most important talent on this tree more often than not. The only other one that I would probably ever take would be Mass Entanglement. I would not use Heart of the Wild versus pretty much anything. I just don't find it as strong as Bash or Mass Entanglement. It just doesn't. It gives you more damage with Feral Affinity and more bonuses from Guardian as well. But this Mighty Bash stun is just really strong. Like having an extra stun is very, very strong. The only time that I might take Mass Entanglement is if I'm playing with a Affliction Warlock or something, maybe a Shadow Priest. In which case, I still might take Bash. But this is just explaining why I might take Mass Entanglement. So versus certain things, as a certain comp, I might take Mass Entanglement. Say like with an Affliction lock that is going against a warrior, or maybe a Death Knight or something that has like a melee, that you can combo your Deep Root talent. You would play Deep Roots with this Mass Entanglement. This is the only time I would use it, because the Deep Roots makes it to where people can take more damage in your root. So say I'm Root of Warrior and he gets dispelled and he's chasing my Affliction Warlock, which even if he does get dispelled, the UA, Unstable Affliction, from the Warlock will really do some big damage to this person, this warrior. To the healer that's dispelling the warrior. So you combo your roots with his Unstable Affliction, because if they dispel the root, the healer, then they take a lot of damage and it puts them behind. But if they don't dispel it, then the Deep Roots will hold them in that root while the Warlock's dots are just raining down on the warrior. And I've been on the reverse end of this. I've played against Chanimals many times with a rank 1 healer, and I was playing the Druid Warrior comp, and they just kept reading my warrior, and if I dispelled it as the Resto Druid, I would die because the Unstable Affliction hits so hard. And if I didn't dispel it, then my warrior couldn't do anything. He'd just be in the root taking a ton of damage, because the root won't break with Deep Roots. And then after that root's over, their Resto Druid can just Mass Entangle again instantly. So like the first root, you might hard cast your Entangling Root on the target, and then the second root you would just Mass Entangle instantly as soon as that root breaks or gets dispelled, and then you could work with Mass Entanglement that way. But most of the time, most comps you play, more often than not, you're just going to play Mighty Bash just for that extra stun. Again, there's VODs of me playing against Chanimals and things like that if you want to see this Mass Entanglement combo and how it works with Deep Roots and how that can be very strong. Moving on, I take Soul of the Forest most games. The only time I won't take Soul of the Forest is with if I'm going against a team that I think is going to purge me a lot. If I'm worried about purges from Resto Shaman, Disc Priest, or maybe Disc Priest Ellie, or Shadow Priest X, things that I think that this Soul of the Forest will just be useless against. Because assume that I use my Soul of the Forest, I Swift Mend to get my Soul of the Forest, and then I want to Rejuve because it's going to make my next Rejuve very strong. But if the other team is just purging constantly, that is totally useless. They'll just purge off my Rejuve and it won't be worth anything. And you generally want to use your Soul of the Forest on a Rejuve. Because if you have 2 Soul of the Forest Rejuves, or just 1 Soul of the Forest Rejuve with a regular one and a Life Bloom and all these other hots on your target, then that hot ticking for 200% extra is going to help a lot. It's going to do really well. Cultivation is probably what I would take, or Incarn, depending on what I'm playing against. I would probably play Incarn if it's a double DPS comp I'm playing against in 2v2 arena, because the game probably won't last long enough for the other like for my tree form will probably last long enough for my DPS to kill the other team if I'm playing against like Shadow Priest Feral or something with purges that is also a double DPS team. But I would probably take Cultivation in 3v3 if I'm that worried about all of my heals getting purged. Because it just gives you those free extra hots when your teammates are falling below 60% health. As you can see here, when you get below 60, it applies Cultivation to the target, which heals them for an extra hot. So that's nice. It gives you some extra throughput whenever Soul of the Forest is useless. And then Tree Form in those rare situations where there's like Purge and it's a double DPS team in like 2v2 arena. But in 3v3, this probably won't keep you alive long enough to be worth it. Although I could be wrong. It is just pre-patch. Maybe the pace of the game could allow for this talent to be good. But I personally would only use it in the situations I just talked about. Soul of the Forest, I use 99% of the time. Moving on, Inner Peace. I would never, ever in a million years use this talent in PvP, ever. I don't think it's ever good. I think it's either going to be Overgrowth, pretty much 99% of the time, or if you're maybe playing with the Warlock or a Shadow Priest, as I said, you could combo Spring Blossoms with Nourish, or maybe even Spring Blossoms without Nourish, just for that extra hot if you know that your teammate's going to stand still in this efflorescence that you put down. So, moving on from that one, I don't think it's very, or I probably already covered it rather, with the Nourish combo and talking about how Warlocks have to stand still in it, and this and that. It's pretty much the only time I'd use Spring Blossoms. Overgrowth obviously just helps you instantly get that instant full hots out whenever you're coming out of a CC and your team is really low and you just need to get your hots on them as fast as possible. A quick heal. You can Overgrowth and then Swift Mend and top somebody pretty easily with it. So Overgrowth is generally the most strong talent on this tree, unless, like I said, with a Warlock or Shadow Priest, or I might be forgetting something, but it's generally going to be mostly Warlock, possibly Shadow Priest. Even then, still might use Overgrowth. Moving on to the next, I think Germination is what you're going to want to take all 99% of the time. It allows you to have more than one rejuve on a person, which instantly not only gives you that extra heal, but also increases all of your other healing by an extra 13% because of your mastery. Once again, the more hots you have on, the more healing you'll do overall, with your mastery snowballing bigger and bigger. So almost all the time you're going to take Germination, unless in the case of an Ultra Omega Purge team, then I would probably take Photosynthesis. If you know that you're not going to be able to keep your hots up on people, you just want to be able to get some type of bonus that Germination isn't allowing you to get. So Flourish increases the duration of all your heals. So again, if someone's purging you a lot, then increasing the duration of your heals doesn't matter if your heals are going to get purged instantly. I mean, it also increases the rate of your heals, but again, if you can't keep your hots up, then this does you no good. So Photosynthesis, you can use it just if you can at least keep one life bloom on somebody, then this talent is at least giving you some value. Whenever it's on an ally, it increases your heals on them, and it also could bloom, which means that it could give you or give them an instant heal, which it says at the bottom right. If you look at the tooltip, life bloom heals the target for 2,000 every 15 seconds, but when it expires or is dispelled, it heals for a certain amount. So that certain amount is what the bloom heal is, and it can randomly bloom if you use this talent on your teammate. Or if you use it on yourself, then it'll just increase all of your heals over time across the board on anyone. Like say I just keep the life bloom on myself, then my rejuve will be increased. It'll go 20% faster, tick 20% faster, as well as my regrowths, my wild growths, whatever. So this is the only useful talent, I think, whenever playing a team that's going to purge you like crazy and you're not able to do anything. So germination 99% of the time. Focus growth, I also take every single game so far. I could be wrong, but if I am, if you guys have any other ideas, please let me know. But I think focus growth is going to be taken almost every game. It just increases or reduces the mana cost of Life Bloom, which is helpful, and it allows you to put 3 stacks of them, which gives it has certain advantages. It gives you more healing. It makes it harder for people to purge you because they have to go through more Life Blooms to be able to purge off other things. Say they're trying to purge your thorns, or they're just trying to clean you. It gives you more of a barrier from purges, so that's good, and it just gives you more healing overall, so that's nice as well. So Master Shapeshifter, I take in 2s a lot because in 2s I have the freedom to use my Feral Affinity and do a lot of damage, and this increases the damage from Feral Affinity and Boomkin Affinity. But I'm mostly playing Feral Affinity, so it's mostly going to affect my Feral. Or if I'm really scared of dying and I don't feel like there's any other talents that I'd get any value out of, I could go Guardian Affinity and still use my Master Shapeshifter, which would give me like a 10% less chance of being crit by melee attacks. So if I really don't feel like there's any other value in the other talents that I might be taking, versus a team that's going to be training me, a team that has at least 1 melee training me, I might take Master Shapeshifter with Guardian Affinity. Less often, but it's possible. So yeah, but Master Shapeshifter does come in good handy in 2s when playing Feral Affinity to do more damage. Thorns is very strong if you're playing versus a team that doesn't have a purge and has a melee on it. It does a ton of damage, and it might even make them not attack your teammate, because so you could use it sort of as a defensive as well, not just to hurt the other team, but to maybe make them stop hitting your teammate who's low, because it would in turn kill them. So they might switch targets, which allows you to top your teammate. But in general, you try to Thorns when you know they're going to hit your teammate, and whenever it would do the most damage or mitigate the most damage. Entangling Bark I find pretty useful as well versus certain melee comps, such as like maybe DK, because it could also root the A-bomb and all the pets and whatever is hitting my teammate. It just gives, say you're playing with a hunter, it allows them to kite, because for that second that the DPS gets rooted off of them, they get some distance. So any melee, this will constantly root them while they're ironbarked off of your target. So that could be useful. I use it with a hunter mostly. I think it's good with a hunter. I think it's very good versus demon hunters. If a demon hunter is going to train you as a healer, as a resto druid, because demon hunters have a ton of mobility, a lot of damage, they're very annoying to deal with as a resto druid. I would probably take Entangling Bark. To just when I ironbark myself, say I would run the demon hunter behind a pillar. Say his healer is over here. Say I am getting trained by a demon hunter. I run behind this pillar. I ironbark myself, and if he melees me right here, he gets rooted right there. And then I can move over here. I can top myself, do whatever I need to do. He's coming out of that root. I can either re-root him, or if I see that his healer's coming to dispel him, then I can just cyclone him off of the root back here. So he's rooted 8 seconds into a full cyclone, while my DPS is doing work and pumping people, and I'm safe over here. But you want to get him behind a pillar with this Ironbark, because if he's out here, then he'll just get dispelled from the root and keep training you. So Entangling Root can be useful in those situations, and possibly more. But I'm going to try to move on, get this done. Disentanglement, you could possibly find use for it, but more often than not, it's just not as strong as the other talents that you will be taking. Unless you're just trying to really theory craft and beat a team that you think it might help you beat, then I probably wouldn't use it. Reactive Resin, if you think that there isn't another useful talent that you're going to take good advantage of, and you're playing against a melee team that does a lot of pressure, then this might help you keep your team alive. So what it does is, you can read the tooltip. It says it will heal the target for 520 after taking a melee crit strike, and it also increases the duration of rejuvenation by 2 seconds. So it just helps you. If you don't know what else to take, you're going against some melee, and the other talents don't seem good, you can take this as a talent just for some extra throughput. We've talked about these, we've talked about thorns, we've talked about deep roots. High winds. So this is kind of interesting. I'm not exactly certain when this would be. It's hard to weave this in as a talent. It seems very strong, but I don't find myself playing a lot of comps against a lot of comps that I would find this useful, more useful than the other talents. But it does seem strong. It reduces the damage by 25% for 4 seconds of any person that comes out of a cyclone of yours. So if you're not going to cyclone a lot, then don't bother taking it. If you're playing against a team that doesn't have like the most instant damage, then it's probably not useful either. Like maybe a Windwalker or a Warrior would have instant damage that I'm talking about, but maybe like a Shadow Priest or a Warlock wouldn't be or like maybe an Afflock be more accurate. It wouldn't be as useful because the dots being decreased by 25% for 4 seconds wouldn't really do that much. But if you're going to reduce the amount of damage of like a Warrior or a Windwalker or something, or maybe a Rogue that wants to come out and burst, and you're able to clone a lot, then by all means, maybe you can use this talent. And it could be more strong than I realize, but I personally have been over 2,802 since this pre-patch on Resto Druid without it, and I usually can find better things to play. In threes, unfortunately, the threes bracket isn't very good right now to play on. So, but I still don't think that you will end up taking this talent very often. But by all means, if you think it's strong, then go for it. Early spring is nice versus teams where, let's say, you don't think that any of your other talents, or you don't think that you might have a talent slot that's open because you don't know what else to play. This will help you get an instant cast Wild Growth out. The Wild Growth in and of itself isn't the strongest heal, but it does increase your mastery instantly without having to cast anything by 13%. Gives you a good throughput, good AoE heal. You might be able to use it in that way. It also makes it to where you apply Life Bloom to all your targets. To all people that the Wild Growth hits, so it makes your Wild Growth stronger for sure. So you might be able to weave it in. More often than not, this setup is probably what I'm going to take. I might drop Mark of the Wild for Thorns, or I might drop Master Shapeshifter for Thorns, or if it's not a melee, I'll most likely be playing these talents to do more damage. And Mark of the Wild in pre-patch is extra strong because everyone is playing Crucible of the Flame, which is pretty much the new Gushing Wounds. It does like 20% plus of people's damage a lot of the time, just the passive from Crucible. As you can see, I'm even playing Crucible for 2v2 Arena. The concentrated flame damage is technically fire damage, so it's reduced by the Mark of the Wild. So if you want to mitigate a lot of damage by almost any class, you could just take Mark of the Wild. It'll as a safe talent. It reduces the Crucible flame damage over time by 15%, as well as some other types of damage. So it could help you for more than just Crucible, but that's mainly the focus of it from what I find. It's very good versus Boomkins because they are only damage over time effects, and they have arcane damage. Or sorry, they have nature damage as well. I think their Moonfire and Sunfire are both affected by Mark of the Wild. So anyway, it's a pretty strong talent. And then there's nothing else really to talk about talent-wise. So to keep it quick for you, I think I'll move on to... Let's see, we could talk about the healing rotation. Alright, so healing rotation. If you're playing versus a team that has a Purge, I think Life Bloom should probably be the first heal that you throw on your teammate almost every time, because if they Purge, then it instantly heals your target. If you're in a tough situation, then probably Rejuve should be the first heal that you get on someone, just because you can Swiftmend to consume that Rejuve, and the Swiftmend is a pretty large heal. So that would help you for getting quick heals out as a rejuve Swiftman quickly. Generally, you want to keep your Life Bloom at 3 stacks, and you want to have both of your rejuves up, rejuve, 3 stack Life Bloom at all times on whoever you're healing. You don't want to let your Life Bloom stacks fall. You want to, right before your Life Bloom stacks fall, you want to reapply Life Bloom so it stays at 3 stacks. So you don't have to press it 3 more times to get it back up to 3 stacks after it falls. So you want to keep those 3 stacks up. You want to keep both of your rejuves up. You want to regrowth whenever it's free. The hot from the regrowth will actually give you an extra hot for your mastery as well as the initial heal from it. So the hot, the initial heal, and the mastery bonus from the hot is very strong from regrowth once you have all of your other heals on the person. And if you are playing, sorry, let me turn down this music real quick. If you are playing, sorry, these Azurite traits in pre-patch, rampant growth, it makes it to where whoever your Life Bloom is on, regardless of who you regrowth, your regrowth hot will also go on the Life Bloom target. So I do this all the time. If the other team has kicks up and my Life Bloom is on my teammate, then I get a regrowth proc, or I just want to get some more free healing on them and I don't know what else to press, I can regrowth myself behind the pillar to get that regrowth hot on my teammate who's out here, and they can't kick me because I'm behind the pillar. So I get a free regrowth hot. You can see me doing this all the time on stream, or in my YouTube videos. I do it all the time. My traits also increase my Swiftman healing. I have 3 of these. But I want to move away from traits because it's not going to be important in Shadowlands, whereas most of this information will be useful in Shadowlands. So I'm going to keep it to what I think is good in pre-patch and Shadowlands. I have heard from other rank 1 Resto Druid mains, people who main Resto Druid, that, and I agree with them, that Necrolord will probably be the best Covenant for Resto Druid, as it gives you a pretty big heal, and it gives you some damage mitigation bonus. But on top of these things, you pretty much will only hardcast Wild Growth if you already have all of your hots on people. The other team has no kick. You already regrowth them. And you just need to get that extra heal just for more throughput because there's nothing else you can do. This is just like a last resort, is hardcasting Wild Growth. Costs a lot of mana. You generally want to try to stay away from casting it unless you innervate. If you innervate, what you want to do is you want to get this buff up, get as many hots on as many people as you can. You can even Tranquility because it gives a hot. See, it heals over time. You could even Trank really quick to get this extra hot, increases your mastery once again. You can get a Wild Growth out during your innervate. You have all these extra hots increasing your mastery like crazy on every person. You could even throw out Moonfires and Sunfires on your enemies to try to get extra damage out, free of cost of mana. You just want to you can do whatever you want when innervate's up. You just want to take as much advantage of it as you can. Just get all of your big heals out, all your hots, your Trank, get your Wild Growth, get all of your heals so that your mastery is just doing the most amount of healing. And you want to try to innervate either just when you need the mana or when you know you're about to use you need to use a lot of spells to keep someone alive to get the most use out of it and save as much mana as possible. Outside of that, we can talk about positioning. You generally, your goal as a Resto Druid, if you are playing Feral Affinity, as you will be most of the time, or you should be, if you're trying to be as optimal as you can and helping your team land kills, then you constantly are wanting to position yourself where you can be safe on a pillar. Everyone's fighting out here, you're keeping your teammates, you're weaving in and out, just keeping your hots up, and whenever you feel like you have a buffer where you can take time to drop combat behind a pillar while your team is still alive, you get a re-stealth. You can look for who on the other team is not on stun DR, and you see if you can maybe open with a rake stun on somebody. So you come out of stealth with a rake stun somewhere safe, hopefully, or you try to maybe get across the map to another pillar to better your positioning with your stealth, or maybe you can even get to the other healer and stun them behind a pillar and then cyclone them off of the stun. You're constantly wanting to take advantage of your feral affinity by getting re-stealths. You just want to keeping your team alive, and then when you can, this is what makes the best Resto Druids, is you're trying to get as much like utility as you can to help your team find kills while keeping your team alive. Keeping your team alive is all good and dandy, but whenever you're going to have to beat better and better people, you're going to need to take advantage of these re-stealths and drop in combat to get stuns and clones on people. This shadow meld makes it to where even without taking the time to drop combat after so many seconds of not healing, you can just instantly meld re-stealth, stun somebody in the case of trying to get a quick stun set up, or maybe even just to stun a melee off of you or something. To get away, you can do all of these things. Something that is also pretty important, if we're going to talk about feral affinity, then we should also talk about guardian affinity. If someone is about to try to go you, that you know they have a stun coming for you, you're generally going to want a guardian bear form before the stun hits you, just to mitigate as much damage as you can within the stun. And then after the stun, you can maybe press frenzied regen if you're guardian affinity, which is a very, very strong heal. Gives you 30% of your health, 32% of your health over 3 seconds. And you're taking less damage while in the bear affinity. Not to mention, you also get this incap roar that you can press to CC the person for 3 seconds. So generally, if you're fighting people in arena, you want to get out of line of sight, incap roar them off of you, get a free cyclone on them. Or if you just have to do it in the open, maybe you have the opportunity because the other team doesn't have any kicks, or based on their positioning, you can incap roar someone into a cyclone, or just use it to peel to CC the enemy team from killing your team in any kind of way. So Guardian Affinity is useful in that. You can always charge people in bear form and then cap roar them in some creative way to try to find a kill. We've talked about Mastery, we've talked about Guardian Affinity, Feral Affinity, Positioning, Talents, Healing Rotation. Not so in depth on Healing Rotation, but if you want to get more into any of these things, just watch my stream. You'll see it all instantly. Whatever you want to find, just go to my stream, go to my YouTube videos. You'll see my gameplay. You'll be able to find whatever you're looking for. Essences, we could talk about essences, but I think you'll be fine with a different array of essences. Just go on Armory, find the highest Resto Druids, see what they're playing. You can pick one that fits your playstyle the most. I personally am just kind of lazy. I just picked things that I thought were good. I went triple grove trending, so my Swiftmans are strong. I got 1 Waking Dream just to keep my Ysera's gift healing people. I've got 1 Lively Spirit. This just makes it to where if I innervate, then every heal I press while I'm innervating gives me 0.5% of my mana back. So as soon as I innervate, I'm pressing as many spells as I can as possible before my innervate ends to get this mana to come back to me. So I can get as much mana back as I can with the more buttons that I press. This actually helps a lot throughout a game. Gets me a lot of mana back. Rampant Growth, this allows me to regrowth myself or another teammate, and which would put another regrowth hot on whoever my life bloom is on. Just a little helping hand with getting extra hots up. But this won't be in Shadowlands, so if you're worried about Shadowlands, don't worry about it too much. Keybinds, I can do another video on keybinds if you want. I could talk about macros. Macros that I use on Resto Druid, I 100% would either have a few focus macros, or if you're like me and you have a Naga and you have a lot of free keybinds, you would make as optimally, you could make 1, 2, 3 macros, which would allow you to cyclone arena enemy 1, 2, and 3 without ever targeting them. You can keep targeting whoever you want, whoever you're healing, whoever you're doing damage to, and then still cyclone the enemies without having to deselect any targets. Just makes it a lot easier. You don't have to do 1, 2, 3. You could just do a focus macro for cyclone. but I 100% would make at least a focus macro, if not these 1, 2, 3 macros. I also have the same macros for my entangling roots. You can copy them from this video. They're the same thing, just different spells. So these are pretty much the only macros I use for that. For Resto Druid, I use a lot of macros on other classes, like probably more so than Resto Druid. I also have 1, 2, 3 bash, as well as a focus mighty bash. I really like macros. This just allows me to feel like I have more control over what I'm doing in a quicker manner within a game, with pressing less buttons all over the place. Just keeps you doing. If you have the extra keybinds and you're willing to do it, do it. I promise you, it'll help you a ton. There's no other super important macros that I have on this druid other than my bash 1, 2, 3, my clone 1, 2, 3, and my root 1, 2, 3. But you could just do focus macros for all these things so that it's not overwhelming. It's a lot less buttons, but I definitely recommend doing it. If there's anything else I missed, please let me know. I think this pretty much covers the basics of everything. Went through the talents, went through the rotation, the gear, and a few other things. But anyway, thank you for watching, and please give me feedback. This is my first YouTube guide. Actually, it's my second guide technically, but my last one was like 3 years ago and a whole another expansion. Let me know how it was, what I could do differently, and what you guys want to see me make videos of outside of this. I can play any classes at rank 1 rating pretty much, or at least I can understand how they're supposed to be played. If I need to do that, I can ask. I have plenty of rank 1s on my friends list, people that you might know that I could ask and I can work with and see what they think about each class. I can make these videos and help you guys out. So let me know what you guys want to see, and have a really nice day. I love all of you. Follow my stream, follow my YouTube. If you want to see more content, I swear it'll help you get a lot better. If you're at a lower point than me, which I think most of you might be, but you know, some of you might be better than me. It's possible. But yeah, I can recommend you to other people. I can make guides. I could do whatever. Just let me know. You guys take it easy and have a nice day. Thanks.